Whether you ordered that Amazon gift for your mom's birthday, took that Uber ride to work, or even that time you used the internet to find out how to get rid of your headache, it was all done under the watchful eye of BlackRock. Often referred to as the shadow bank of the world, this nickname is no joke. Apple, Microsoft, Tesla, Meta, hell, even the very software I'm using to edit this video, BlackRock owns a share in all of them, and the list only starts there. So how is it possible? A company so powerful and rich that they hold more assets than the GDP of every country on the planet, except for two. A company with a net worth of 9.3 trillion, yet not even a whisper can be heard about it. To find the answer to our questions, you have to know something about BlackRock. They're a company that sits back and just waits for the world to fall in a crisis and swoop in and quote unquote save the day. So you've got to ask yourself, what happens when a society is too busy fighting amongst itself and full of financial problems? Well, you get BlackRock. Lawrence Douglas Fink, aka Larry Finks, was born on November 2nd, 1952 in Van Nuys, California. He grew up as one of 3 children and his family was far from poor, but his parents worked extremely hard, and from a young age, Larry had an interest in politics, but quickly changed interest to a more financially rewarding career, and it was this shift that would change the world forever. He then went on to receive a BA in political science from UCLA in 1974. But before BlackRock or any of his achievements, he was already set for success because of his parents' money and connections. An early example of this was Kappa Beta Phi, a sort of secret society based on Wall Street in New York. It's a group made of high-ranking financial executives with previous members such as Bill Clinton and Peyton Manning. And yes, Larry Fink was part of this very same group. Larry would soon mark his beginning in the corporate world in 1976 at First Boston, which was a New York-based investment bank. He took his first role in Wall Street very seriously, and in almost no time he climbed up the corporate ladder and became the youngest manager in his department. Things were going pretty well for Larry, but things were about to get a whole lot better. By 1983, the US had just recovered from a decade-long recession, and the president's first move on the chessboard was to cut taxes and deregulate Wall Street in a hopeful attempt to boost the economy. Then, mortgage-backed securities fell into the picture, and Larry Fink's future was about to change forever. One thing that you're gonna need to remember for later on is that Larry Fink was one of the architects behind this financial innovation of mortgage-backed securities. After the addition of mortgage-backed securities, Larry was a household name at First Boston. By some estimates, he made over $1 billion in earnings for his company by selling these securities to pension funds and endowments. And it was at this point that the US had reached a point of no return. Although they didn't know it yet, the economy was in for a world of trouble, and people's lives would change forever. But this wouldn't happen for another 2 decades. For now, things for Larry were getting worse before they got better. The same risky techniques he used to make millions of dollars at First Boston would soon catch up to him in 1986, where his department lost $100 million due to an error in calculation on Larry's part. And it turns out that this one mistake was enough for him to get fired. And just like that, the reputation he built for years was ruined in a matter of seconds. The dream seemed as though it was over for Larry. He was at the top of the world and now was just an unemployed regular old guy. But his thirst for power just didn't allow him to quit. And so 2 years passed, but Fink didn't let the time go by idly. It all started when he met Stephen Allen Schwartzman, aka Steve Schwartzman, one of the wealthiest and influential men on Wall Street. But most importantly, the CEO of Blackstone. Yeah, sounds oddly familiar, doesn't it? The two met through Larry's varied connections and started a joint venture called Blackstone Financial Management, which aimed to help large corporations in wealth management and investment planning. Blackstone Financial Management operated as 2 separate factions, BlackRock, which was Larry's idea, and Blackstone. And within 5 years, the two had over $8 billion as their assets under management. However, their partnership was beginning to become troublesome. As 2 powerful men with different ideas do, Steve and Larry argued a lot about how the funds should be managed. And after years of constant disagreements, enough was enough, and Larry convinced Steve to sell his share of the business, which would prove to be one of Steve's biggest mistakes. And Larry knew this, but he just didn't care. It was all his now, and that's all that mattered to him. He had complete control of BlackRock without his partner in the way, and it didn't take long before his thirst for power and money would be quenched. Just 3 years after separating from Blackstone, BlackRock's AUM grew to $48 billion. And this is where I have to give credit to Larry Finks' genius. By 1999, he transformed BlackRock into the 5th largest asset manager in America. But despite all these billions, BlackRock's true planetary potential wouldn't be seen until the 2008 crisis, aka the year that changed America forever. America entered the worst recession it had ever seen. Many large financial firms and markets had skyrocketed, so much so that even the Federal Reserve didn't know what to do. And yep, you guessed it, Larry Fink and BlackRock were at the center of it all. To understand how Larry Fink's genius inflated the effects of this crisis, we have to take a step back and look at Larry's relationship with mortgage-backed securities, the very cause of this crisis. Remember back when Larry was on the rise as a trader in Boston and made a name for himself by selling mortgage-backed securities? I never really went into detail on how he gained fame. At first, he pitched his new product to a company called Freddie Mac as a way for his company to offload $1 billion in mortgages. The executives at Freddie's agreed to let First Boston take mortgages, pool them, slice them, and then sell them as securities. And this hugely profitable offering made Larry a star at First Boston, and in no time he was selling the same idea to huge companies, popularizing this concept among the whole of America. So here we are, more than 2 decades later and facing the Great Recession. And in a way, Larry Fink had helped popularize the same mortgage-backed securities that poisoned the banking system. But surprise, surprise, our main man Larry's BlackRock had not nearly been affected as bad as the other companies of its size. And now, BlackRock was there at just the right time to make millions whilst cleaning up the mess that their CEO contributed to. The entirety of Wall Street turned to BlackRock as a safety net, as Larry was laughing his way to the bank. His plan was going perfectly. The government even decided to outsource regulation and awarded BlackRock the contract to essentially sort things out and save the US banks from collapsing. Even if it was momentarily, BlackRock regulated the very economy of the largest nation ever, and that was all that was needed for Larry to see the potential that BlackRock was capable of. However, it was soon after the crisis that Larry realized that he had to change strategies if he wanted to pursue his dreams of total control. So what did he do? He incorporated a method called ETF investing. ETFs are essentially funds that trade on exchanges, meaning that when you invest in an ETF, you get a bundle of assets you can buy and sell, potentially lowering your risk whilst diversifying your portfolio at the same time. And it was this method that opened the door to control for BlackRock. Amazon, Apple, Google, any major company you could think of, BlackRock had their hands in the basket. Some seem to think that BlackRock only grows at a ridiculous rate whenever events such as the 2008 crisis happen. Well, those people wouldn't be completely wrong, but the company's wealth was only maintained and multiplied because of Larry's genius. Take Aladdin for example, a software used by BlackRock that to this day manages over $21.6 trillion of BlackRock's assets. Just for reference, India's total GDP is 3 trillion. And yes, BlackRock was playing around with 7 times the amount of that. And if it wasn't enough at this point, BlackRock had the banking industry in a chokehold. They owned a piece of JP Morgan, Bank of America, Citigroup, and many more. Things were completely getting out of hand. It was now the year 2020, and the infamous shutdown of the planet had commenced. The American economy and the people were once again suffering, but BlackRock were as happy as can be because a crisis meant one thing: payday. And surprise, surprise, as they'd done before, the Federal Reserve came running to one of the biggest financial managers to clean up their mess. But the money that BlackRock made from the lockdown isn't the point of focus here. It's the actions of the government of the world's largest economy. Whilst they were on their last legs and everything was going downhill, it was BlackRock they ran to. This not only meant that BlackRock was untouchable at this point, it also meant that this wasn't just about money anymore. It was influence. However, the lockdown was only the start of this madness. Ever heard of the phrase quality over quantity? Well, that phrase didn't exist for BlackRock. They owned a piece of every sector of modern society at this point: the news, the media, sports, banking. And it's the fact that they have a say in what goes on in most of these companies that has kept the public in the dark, and why you've probably never heard of Larry Fink or BlackRock. But one would wonder, by now they've already conquered America, so what was next? Well, of course, it was other countries. As I'd stated before, Aladdin was one of the largest factors to BlackRock's success because it provided them with leverage. Every time you purchased something from a company BlackRock had shares in, your data would be accounted for within the system, helping to optimize the program's accuracy. They know what you love, hate, what time of the day you're most likely to book that Uber, or even what content you're likely to consume. And in this day and age where information is everything, world leaders know this best. This has allowed BlackRock to not only operate how they want, but even make decisions that affect entire economies of countries they've never even operated in before. But it seems as though this won't stop. They've become too big for America to control and too influential to adhere to any rules. Take these two cases for example. On August 1st, 2023, BlackRock was investigated for investing in companies that were specifically blacklisted by American lawmakers and turning a blind eye to human rights abuses, with ranking committee members stating that the company is exacerbating on an already significant national security threat and undermining American values. But to this day, nothing much has happened to BlackRock because of it. And not too long ago in 2016, BlackRock was part of yet another investigation for quote-unquote intervening in the companies they have shares in. So with BlackRock getting larger and larger as the number of problems in the world increase, what can really be done about them? Can America still control the monster they helped create, or have they gone past the point of no return? Only time will tell.